super excited to have Dad here with me doing an interview on our upcoming series about what's happened with his health and why he's invested in his health. He was the most requested person to talk during the pop-up. So I'm excited to have Dad share some of his story and what health means to him and what the biggest things that he's implemented to have the best health. So this is my dad, Richard Gawith.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for being with us, Dad.
Yep.
So when I came home sick and you needed to start to look after me, what did you think that your health was great at that point, that your health was normal? What did you think about your lifestyle?
Well, actually, I didn't think about my health at all, to be perfectly honest. I just carried on getting up every day and going to work. I never actually gave my health much thought, really. I hadn't considered if I was healthy or unhealthy. I just went to the doctor once a year and he said I wasn't dying, so I carried on. Yep.
And then what motivated you or what made you start changing some things about your health?
Well, there were some things coming up with the doctor on the annual visits. He made comments about cholesterol creeping up and, quote, getting diabetic symptoms. And diabetes is kind of prevalent in my wider family. My mum had it quite badly. My dad had it towards his latter years, and mum died quite a sad death through diabetic-related trauma, really. So when those results started to show up on the test that I was heading that way, that was sort of working away in my brain. I wasn't actually planning any strategies or working out what to do about it, but it was the question had been asked, if you like. Yeah.
And so once I got better, you basically got thrown into this because I needed a practice client, right? And you and mum were available.
Yep. Yeah, when you were doing your training, you needed some live targets and perhaps safe people that weren't going to sue you if you did any damage to them, and that was mum and I. So we got ourselves bent over sideways, backwards, and tested and prodded as your trial patients, yeah. And so some knowledge slowly began.
And for you, dietary wise or lifestyle wise, what were some of the beginning things that you first implemented? Lucy.
Well, one of the first things that was quite a revelation was around sugar, the amount of sugar that I was having, and realizing sugar was in everything. And every time you bought a packet, it had sugar in it. And you know, I grew up in a family of sweet tooth. We used to have desserts every night, and so we were quite conditioned. My dad used to have 2 or 3 teaspoons of sugar in his cup of tea, and I used to have sugar in drinks. And so I became aware a bit more of how much sugar was in everything. And yeah, that was the first thing. And the other thing that we talked about was the fact that I really didn't drink any water.
And did you not drink water because you didn't like the taste of it? You didn't know to drink water? What had stopped you drinking water before?
Well, it never occurred to me to drink water, to be really honest.
Would you have said that you drank water when I first came up, when we first started working together as a practice client?
I would have said that I drank a cup of coffee in the morning and had a cup of tea in the afternoon and had water in it. That's what I would have said.
Totally. And it's true because a lot of people believe that. And I reckon grandma and granddad, your parents believe that too.
Yeah.
Like the thought didn't even cross their mind around how much water they were drinking.
No.
So how much water did you learn that you needed to drink for your body?
I don't get too hung up about that, but what I try to do now is I have a litre bottle of water that I take to work every day, and I always manage to drink my way through that. And I have other glasses of water at other times separate to that. So I just have got used to it, and I find without realising that as soon as I get to my office in the morning, I fill up a glass of water.
So it's become a habit, right?
Well,
It's just you've just started doing it and implementing it.
Yeah.
And so now it's just something that you do as part of your daily habit.
Yep. And occasionally I find that I haven't drank my bowl of water during the day, and I sort of notice it.
How do you notice it? Is it energy? Is it brain clarity?
It's usually because I've been too busy to sit and drink, and so I notice a little bit of I don't know.
Lucy.
I don't know if I noticed that so much, but I just sort of noticed, and yeah.
What other things do you implement most days throughout the week?
Well, I've changed the way I eat. I don't have snacks, morning tea and afternoon tea. Occasionally I do if I feel like it, but mostly I think I have a better breakfast than I used to. I found that I don't really like oats. I used to eat a lot of muesli and sweet with dried fruits in it, and I found I didn't really like oats. So I wasn't enjoying it. So I've changed my breakfast, and now I have a lot of mostly smoothies, but in the weekend we have a bacon and sausages. But I've changed my breakfast. My lunch is a lot lighter, and I don't seem to need as much lunch actually. And we don't have desserts anymore. I don't really miss them. I just find that a good breakfast and a nice dinner is enough, really.
And have you added in any things most days, like fermented things, after learning about that with getting me better?
Well, there's part of me that has this thing of my family thing was the old waste not want not done, and there's part of me that sort of has this thing that likes to sort of save the cabbages from being destroyed and wasted. And there's part of the therapeutic thing about making sauerkraut, which I do because I don't want the poor old cabbage to die. And having made it, then I feel like I've got to eat it. So yeah, there's a steady sauerkraut. And most days I would have some sauerkraut or some sort of fermented thing with my dinner. Obviously not with my smoothie. That wouldn't be so nice. But with dinner, occasionally, depending on what we're having for lunch, I have some. But yes, I'd have sauerkraut most days. The smoothie, from what you've told me, the reason I don't need much lunch is because you've taught me what keeps you going during the day. And in my smoothie, I make sure I have protein and chia seeds or avocado or some sort of fat. And the protein powders give you collagen and those sorts of things as well. So it's not that hard to eat helpful things that give you energy. I don't get hungry. I used to get hungry. And I used to actually at one point get the old 3 o'clock craving. Most days I'd get the 3 o'clock craving and get really hungry. But no, I don't seem to, and I don't eat much for lunch, so it doesn't seem to, the breakfast really makes it quite easy to get through the day.
That's awesome. And so quite early on, after I'd been testing you for supplements and nutrients and foods causing inflammation and all sorts of different things, what were some of the first benefits that you noticed in terms of, you obviously didn't come from a place other than having the family history of potential disease. You weren't necessarily coming to see me by choice, wanting energy or better brain clarity. So what did you notice weight-wise or energy-wise?
A number of things. The first thing was that you pointed out to me, and I didn't realise, but most days when I had lunch, I'd fall asleep for a little bit after lunch for 10 or 15 minutes, and it was just a habit. I used to have lunch and fall asleep. And my dad did that, and I kind of thought it was semi-normal, but I don't do that anymore. Having eaten better, I don't fall asleep at lunchtime. I often will sit and have a rest and just sort of rest my brain for 10 minutes, but I'm not falling asleep. The other thing is once I got rid of sugar and drank more water, I guess what's the polite way of putting it? Your waste system works better.
Good polite way.
And also I managed to really quickly, I was quite surprised, in a matter of a couple of weeks, lose about 12 or 30 kilograms, bang, like that, just changing. It happened really quick. It was quite surprising. I think people who kind of were watching me were getting alarmed as if I had some sort of illness, because I lost a lot of weight quickly. 12 or 13 kilograms, something like that. And it's been that weight, which must be my fighting weight or my normal weight, has stayed since for the last 5 years. My weight hasn't varied at all in the last 5 years. If I exercise or don't exercise or run or don't run or eat or don't eat, my weight sort of stays within a kilogram, more or less, half a kilogram maybe. So it just seems to have got to my
Healthy weight.
Healthy weight, if that's the term, as opposed to, unhealthy. And I noticed a whole lot of my trousers were too big for me, things like that. So yeah, I got from being carrying too much weight with alarm bells around cholesterol, diabetes, and lacking energy, to being a healthy weight. And those symptoms, the measure since have all been, there's no diabetic issues, so there's no cholesterol issues.
Yeah, so have you, with repeats with your blood tests, have you come back also seen, obviously you felt changes in your body, but also seen it with your medical blood test too?
Well, the scores, for what it means, yes. You don't really kind of, when blood tests are impartial, you don't really notice in yourself so much, but yes, what the results are showing are significant. Yeah.
And so after we did the functional testing on your body and changed your diet, what did they make you do in terms of sending things all around the world?
Oh yeah, that was partly your the learning, and partly for your care, for a concern from Mum and I. But I guess it's there were some things that were a bit distasteful. That whole frozen stool thing. Putting frozen things in our freezer for a while was always a bit distasteful. I didn't really enjoy it. And having labelled such and such a date frozen stuff, and then senior, I felt a lot of sympathy for the poor courier driver, really, to be honest.
So basically he did a stool test that had to go to the States, and he doesn't like to discuss it. So what do you remember, anything that the highlights of what came back on your stool test?
Well, there's been so many tests you put us through, I can't remember, to be honest. But no, it came back with some interesting things about the types of foods that weren't good for me. And, I do notice if I have some of those foods, they're not good for you. You can deny the test if you like, but, you do notice sometimes when you have certain foods that it's not a good, you don't feel so good.
And we did a parasite one with your gut bacteria.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. I had some pretty bad parasites. In fact, they were we had to resort to some non-natural means to deal with those. I went to the GP and he gave me some pretty aggressive stuff to deal with that. He was quite surprised at the test. He I guess GPs don't normally do those tests, and he was quite surprised and realised that, yes, they needed to be dealt with. And he gave me some pretty toxic stuff, and we got rid of it.
Totally. And then did we do a hair tissue mineral test? Poor Dad, he's been on like every protocol. We've done a parasite protocol,
probably. I don't
food
know.
inflammation, we've done heavy metals. So it's safe to say Dad had quite a toxic burden on his body without even knowing it. That was the sad part. He'd probably learned it was old age, it was growing up, it was normal. That's just what to be expected, which I think is the message that we often get told. And that most of us aren't living for health or longevity. We're just trending towards disease or some sort of chronic condition. Because if we don't have the awareness and the education, we don't move towards anything. So at this point, once we'd cleared out all of that, Dad was feeling pretty amazing. He didn't have to take many supplements. He ate his fermented foods, his bone broth sometimes, his collagen powder. You were pretty good. Until one of the biggest questions that I get asked, and Dad's living proof of this, is, do we stay healthy forever? But the reality is, does life stay the same forever? Can we control everything? And the answer is absolutely not. And Dad was case example in terms of, I don't like to use this analogy because you wouldn't wish it upon a client. But what happened to you one night when Marcy, my younger sister, was meant to be meeting Dad for dinner and a show?
Oh, yeah. Well, I got hit by a car crossing the road, ended up being concussed and out cold for about an hour or so, and woke up in pretty well in A&E, or whatever they call it. ED. Yep.
And so at that point, my sisters and Mum and I were not knowing whether Dad was going to live or die. And that's one of those times when you really want to be going into an accident like that, or anything with bad health, well, where it can impact your health in the best health possible, right? Because your recovery or your ability to recover is going to be that much better. Like, having good health is also precautionary at the same time, because when something happens, when life throws you something, your hope of recovery is going to be so much better. So with the doctor's permission and dad was straight back on things like hydrochloric acid and all those things that he started in the initial days of his protocol that he no longer needed anymore. Because when stress happens in your body, our digestive system stops working properly, and it has a flow-on impact to his adrenals, to his fatty acids, to anti-inflammatory. So dad was once again taking a multiple pills every single day, but was extremely compliant, right?
I was pretty ill, pretty sick at the point. Yes, I was pretty dopey. I was keen to get better, and having been through the experience of a year or 2, 3 years beforehand of the shift in health, I had a lot of trust in what you had to say, I guess. And you kind of go, what's the downside of taking these things? Why would you not? You can't, it's not going to make it worse.
Totally. So agree with you. And dad was brave and did it all. So dad, just quietly, by any chance, do you have some of the detox things in your household that we have in clinic? For example, like a sauna?
Yeah.
They're his favorites. Can't you tell?
Yeah, no, we do. And that's because Mum likes to get the gadgets as well, but we have all of them. we have the sauna, we have the foot detox, we have the ant coil, we have the shaky thing for you move your feet around. We've got them all, and we use them actually.
And do you notice
2 or 3 times a week we do something.
Do you notice a difference?
Well, I don't know if I notice the difference or not, but I have a simple kind of thing, being sensible and logical. There's a whole lot of people that are a little bit older than me that are heading for bad health. And if you don't look after your health and you want some care from medical providers, you're going to get a shock because there ain't going to be enough care to go around everybody. So if you don't look after your own health and you end up unwell, good luck.
Thanks, Dad. I agree.
Because it's true, you know. You're going to be lining up a whole lot of people at the doctor's surgery trying to get treatment, and he's going to be overwhelmed. There's a lot of sickness on its way through. Anybody with half a brain can see that.
Thanks, Dad. Lucky we've all got full brains, right?
Yep.
Do you have any more tips or anything that you would like to share that I haven't asked you about?
No, I think actually, you know, it's not that hard to make some simple little changes. You don't really give up that much. I mean, I still have a glass of wine sometimes. I still have the odd almond croissant, or, you know, it's not like you're committed to a life of misery by just trying to be a bit healthier. You just have to try and give up the packets and the instant stuff and, you know, enjoy food, good food. Totally.
And you enjoy it, right?
Yeah, it is. It's not that big a deal to eat well, actually.
And the better part is you enjoy your health so much more.
Yeah. I mean, the smoothies at breakfast that seem to keep me going all day are not that big a deal. They're quite easy to make. Yeah.
Well, Dad, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story with us and why your health transformation and how easy it is to keep up such good health.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks, Shelley.
Oh.